Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Stewart Brown, founder of Indiv Yoga and the voice of the British Airways Yoga and Mindfulness Onboard programme. I've been teaching kids yoga for over 15 years and training yoga teachers since 2016, and today I'm going to talk to you about the business of teaching kids yoga. So I'm going to presume that you're a certified 200-hour yoga teacher and you've either already certified as a Yoga Alliance RCYT, that's Registered Children's Yoga Teacher, or are considering doing the course. If the latter, then do make sure that you take the Yoga Alliance 95 hours RCYT course and not a shorter course, because the RCYT is the most comprehensive course there is. Also, I've trained a couple of teachers that had already taken other kids yoga teacher courses, and the reason they came to do the Yoga Alliance course is because when they tried to get work at a school, the certificate they had wasn't accepted and they would only accept Yoga Alliance 95-hour RCYT certified teachers, and this requirement is likely to become more widespread. And this also leads me to insurance. So if you're working at a school, yoga studio or gym, for instance, then you must find out if you're covered for accidents under their insurance policy. If not, or if you're going to go to people's houses to give classes or having kids come to a space you're renting, you'll need to get your own policy, and you'll inevitably have to show the insurance provider a certificate. Even if the Yoga Alliance RCYT certificate isn't the specific certificate requested in your country at the moment, it may be required in the future as the regulations for yoga and anything relating to kids gets more and more stringent. So if you're going to spend money to take a kids yoga teacher certification, then you may as well get the highest one there is. So you've taken the course or are about to, and now what? Well, first of all, you're going to have the most rewarding experience of your life. However, it is going to be exhausting, and a bit more on that later. You're going to be able to see the impact your classes are having on these children and how it's positively affecting their development month by month. You'll be teaching them skills and giving them tools that are going to help them for the rest of their lives. I can personally attest to this because I've had students getting in touch 10, 15 years later, telling me that they're still doing the breathing exercises I taught them, or remembering how to stand and sit with correct posture all these years later. So you're truly having an impact on someone's life when you teach children in a way that you don't really have with adults. However, be warned that kids yoga classes require a lot more planning, a lot more props, and a lot more class plan ideas in your pocket, because unlike an adults class, a kids class rarely goes exactly as planned. And back when I said that they were exhausting, this is why. With adults, you can easily verbalize a lot of the class without having to demonstrate or do a lot of the asanas. However, you cannot be passive in a kids yoga class. You have to be fully engaged and involved, never narrating, but always joining in and being wholly interactive. Kids classes will flow from more energetic to more calming activities and vice versa. You not only need to be doing stretching, strengthening and balancing and working on all the parts of the body, but most importantly, you need to be enhancing their development. This means planning age-appropriate classes where you're engaging their cognitive, physical, fine and motor skills, linguistic, psychological, emotional and social development. So you need to be making classes relevant and beneficial for their age group and not just being a glorified nanny for an hour. This is what makes the Yoga Alliance course different and more comprehensive. I took a couple of kids yoga teacher training courses when I first started teaching, and I basically just learned how to play with kids. It was all intuitive stuff, and I felt like all I walked away with were some fun ways to keep children entertained. Anyway, let's assume that you're now certified and comfortable and confident in teaching safe, relevant and beneficial classes to kids. Firstly, you need to think about whether you're comfortable teaching all age groups, or whether to begin with you're more comfortable teaching certain ages and not others. Then have a think about how many children you're comfortable teaching at one time, especially if you're going to be on your own instead of teaming up with another teacher or having a helper teacher if you're teaching at a school. Start off with a smaller group size, and then as you get more comfortable, you can go from there. This is important because if you get a job in a school and they want you to teach a group of, let's say, 10 kids of 4 years old, you've got to be ready to do that. Personally, I started with 6 kids when I first started teaching, and then I grew from there. And I never went above 12 children in one class because I felt I wouldn't be able to give them the individual attention that they deserve, and the younger the age group, the harder it is to manage on your own. This again relates to what I mentioned at the beginning about kids yoga classes being exhausting. And obviously, the more children you have in a class, the more tiring it can be mentally and physically. So you need to remember to take care of yourself, keep your immune system up, get plenty of rest, and eat well if you're going to be giving regular kids yoga classes, because you're going to need to be healthy to fight off whatever germs they bring into class, and strong and energetic enough to handle teaching a bunch of wonderful kids. With this in mind, you now need to get yourself out there by marketing yourself. So you need to create a website or add this qualification to your already established site, including the benefits of yoga for children and why parents and schools should be signing up. It's worth paying for some good stock photos to begin with, and then in the future swap them out for any real photos that you can, obviously making sure that you have permission to use photos of other people's children. You need to have dedicated social media pages that are separate from your other offerings, and I'll explain why in a moment. And you need to print up some flyers and or business cards. I strongly suggest making your kids' class marketing material and business cards fun and colourful so that they stand out and represent the kind of classes you'll be giving. My name's quite long, so kids used to call me Charlie Brown, and my business cards had an image of Charlie Brown from Snoopy on them, and I used to hand them out to the kids when I first met them, which used to make them feel really grown up and special, and they really loved it. I'm really showing my age talking about business cards, as I've been told that young people don't really use them anymore and instead just connect with each other via social media. But they are useful, or at least small flyers are, as you need something physical, because you should leave flyers and or business cards at every local business that will let you, including physios, kindergartens, hairdressers, child psychologists, massage and beauty parlours, kids behavioural and language therapist offices, libraries, etc. And take the time to talk to the owners of these establishments to explain to them the benefits of kids yoga and to show them how passionate you are about teaching so that they recommend you to their clients. You can also think about collaboration possibilities. For instance, if someone is happy to have your flyers at their establishment, then you should offer to put theirs in your studio or teaching space if you have one. Actually, one of the teachers I've trained teaches at kids' hairdressers after school hours, because the hairdresser wanted to offer something additional for kids in her space, and she does a special discount for the parents who want their hair cut in the other part of the shop while their kids are in the yoga class. Another one of the teachers that I've trained gives breathing, mindfulness and relaxation classes at a library. Personally, I used to work closely with psychologists, physios and language or occupational therapists when I was teaching private yoga classes with children who had special needs. We would be in touch weekly so that what I was doing in class was in line with what they were doing in their sessions, and that each complemented each other. You see, there are ways in which the many ancient techniques and aspects of yoga, pranayama, mindfulness and meditation can be applied to enhance not only the physical development of children, but also their linguistic, psychological, social, emotional and cognitive development, whether it be in group or private classes. But more on private classes later. Then you need to join every local parents, kids, nanny and babysitter related Facebook group there is in your area and market your services on them. And the reason I mention having a separate social media account for your kids' classes, especially on Facebook, is so that all the reviews that you're going to accumulate over time are specific to your offerings and skills as a kids yoga teacher. Then find out who's responsible for extracurricular activities in all the schools near you and send them an email suggesting yoga classes for kids of whatever age group you're comfortable with, and obviously including your Yoga Alliance qualification and the benefits that this can have for the students, but also for their school performance. Then you need to follow this up with a call a couple of days later, making sure that they received your email and asking if they have any questions or would like any further information. Schools could be interested in yoga classes as part of PE or sports classes at lunchtime or after school hours. And the bigger the school, the more likely they are to have the space for classes like a school hall or gym. And private schools tend to have more money to spend on extracurricular activities. Depending on where you're living, international schools are good to approach also, as they tend to be quite forward-thinking and open to new activities. But don't disregard local state schools or those in lower socioeconomic areas, as very often those children are very much in need of the skills and benefits that yoga can bring them. There may be other child-related organisations, foundations, hospitals or charities that you could approach, especially for children with particular difficulties or limitations. And then of course you have the option of private yoga classes for one child, or sometimes the private classes I gave at a client's house were for siblings. Now this can be tricky if the siblings aren't close in age. So if the ages are too far apart, then you might need to suggest separate sessions in order for each child to benefit and not either get bored or, on the other hand, feel the class is too advanced, which with certain poses could actually be harmful. However, if the siblings are only a few years apart, then design the classes for the older child, as the younger sibling will want to copy and impress the older one and will stay interested, instead of vice versa if you were having an older sibling in a class designed for the younger one. Depending on how many children you have in a group class, you can sometimes earn more money from private classes, as you will charge more per hour than you would per child in a group class. If you don't have your own studio space, then you'll be traveling to other locations or clients' houses for the classes, so keep the cost of travel and your time in mind when pricing your classes. There's no universal rule I can share with you regarding pricing, as every country and area is different, but check what your competition charges and always start off by pricing your classes a bit lower in order to attract some initial business. One very effective way of getting some initial traction is by offering a free trial class. I offered a free trial class for any parent interested in private yoga classes for their child for the first 6 parents to respond to my Facebook post, and all 6 kids loved their classes and the parents hired me to continue on a weekly basis. What's important is to remember the terms schedule where you live and put more energy into marketing yourself when schools or parents are thinking about their child's timetable for the following term. If you're going to rent a space for your classes, then consider it being near a residential area or at least near good parking. It's also important to always finish your classes on time, as parents may have put money in a parking meter or have another appointment to get to with their child. And it's also good to consider a space where there's a nice cafe nearby, if you can, for the parents to be able to have a coffee, do some work, read or socialise with other parents while the class is going on. Now, for your classes, there are a few things you must have and must remember. Firstly, consider taking a first aid course. It's worth having some disinfectant and fun kids plasters with you, as kids do fall over sometimes, and tissues for cold season and wet wipes. Get all of them to disinfect their hands when you start the class, and kindly ask parents to refrain from bringing their kids to class if they're ill. I've been given colds, eye infections and even head lice from kids yoga classes, and none of those are fun, especially lice when you have this much hair. You should also have some magic balm with you. I basically had a pot of lip balm that I called my magic balm. So whenever a child fell over or had a tummy or headache, I would tell them that my magic balm would make them feel better, and I'd let them rub some where it hurt. Very often their aches are temporary, exaggerated or psychosomatic and will go away with some magic balm, deep calm breathing, some distractions or even a glass of water. And if they're going to be running around, they will get thirsty. So water in closed, sealed bottles should be allowed to stay in the corner of the room. For safety, always make sure they take their socks off so they don't slip, that their hair is tied back, trousers are rolled up. This is always needed as parents tend to buy kids longer trousers that they can continue growing into. And also remember to remove any jewellery that could get in the way. Now, before any class with children, whether in your own space, at their house, or especially if you're turning up each week at a school gym, it's your responsibility to make sure that the space is clear and safe. If working with 2 to 4-year-olds, you must remove anything sharp, heavy, potentially harmful that they could swallow, hurt themselves with, or damage. Never have candles or incense lit in reach of children. And for some strange reason, little kids love keys. So make sure that they're not in reach, or you could end up getting locked in or unable to lock a door if a kid has put them in their bag without you noticing, which has happened to me before. Now, if you're going to give them any sweets or something to eat as a reward or as part of an activity, you must get permission from the parents beforehand. This leads me to pre-consent forms and questionnaires. All parents need to fill out and sign an online or paper questionnaire before stating any allergies that their kid has, whether they have any medical conditions, and whether it's okay for you to touch the child when appropriate. If they do have emergency medication, then you always need to know where it is kept and get the parent to explain to you how to use it, things like asthma pumps or EpiPens. The older the child, the more aware and conscientious they are about using their own medication, but while they're under your supervision, it is your responsibility. You should also find out if you can use any images of their child for marketing. I would often take photos of the kids to send to their parents, as they really appreciate receiving the occasional photo of their child looking adorable doing a particular pose, and often would consent at the end of term that I use them. And then we come to props. You need to have a lot of different types of props for kids' classes. Therefore, you always need to have a plan of what you're going to do in each class and which prop you're going to be using and need to have with you. I have a massive large suitcase filled with all the kids' yoga props I've gathered over the years. So many weird and wonderful things in there, and I've used them to make classes more interesting, fun, and beneficial. So plan your props and make sure you have backup ideas for your classes using the same props, because if the kids aren't interested that day in a couple of your planned ideas, then you're going to need to move on to some backups. There are endless ways to bring all the different aspects of yoga to children and to create amazing classes for them, which I cover on the course. But one of the important things to mention is to not make the class too competitive and to remember not to show any favoritism. You can send parents an end of term report with what you've worked on, how they've improved and the things they still need to work on, and perhaps get the parents involved in the last class of the term. Remember to ask them to write you a review on your Facebook or Google pages and to recommend you to other parents. You can also consider setting up yoga summer camps, as many parents are often looking for something fun to keep their child busy during the holidays while they're at work. And lastly, one thing I'd like you to bear in mind is not to give up on any child, especially the ones that are most challenging or badly behaved, because usually those are the ones that need yoga the most and will benefit from it the most. So practice a lot of patience and give that child the love and attention it needs, as you'd be surprised what an impact you can have. Often there are things happening in a child's home or school life that are causing it to have a more difficult personality. And as their yoga teacher, you can often make a big positive difference in their life. Greater resilience, calm and control are 3 of the main proven benefits of yoga for kids. So stick with the kids that you'd usually disregard. To finish, remember that you're not a babysitter or nanny. You're a qualified yoga teacher who has learned how to enhance a child's development using the many tools that asana, pranayama, mindfulness and meditation have to benefit them and make them happier, calmer and healthier kids, and then eventually adults. If you're interested in taking my Yoga Alliance RCYT 95-hour Kids Yoga Teacher Training course, then check out all the course information on indivyoga.com. I hold the course once a year and I hope to see you there. Oh, and one more thing that I forgot to mention is advertising on Facebook. So as well as having your flyers and your business cards, Facebook is a great place for you to advertise. So you can create a post and then boost it or go into Ads Manager. And the wonderful thing is that you can narrow down the demographic that your ad is going to be shown to just your local area. You can also narrow it down to, let's say, parents' ages or even just women from 35 to 55, the age of parents usually, and send your adverts just to those people. So use Facebook as a wonderful tool for getting the word out there in your local area. Namaste.